Welcome everyone to another episode of the Adeptus Ridiculous. I'm DK, and I'm running out of metaphors for how I know very little about Warhammer, so we're just gonna get into this episode, because, you know, I've been finding it so very difficult to remember what's happened in these episodes because they're spaced so far apart. 2 weeks is just like, man, what possibly happened in the last episode? Bricky, is there any way you could help amend this problem?
I got this shit-eating grin on my face because that was a really good segue. And I'm like, nice job, DK, good one. It's a good way to segue into the fact that we hit $1,000 on Patreon, which means weekly episodes shall be coming out from here and into the future. And as promised, this is literally the morning after we hit 1,000 and we record the next episode because we said we would do that in the last one. And we are men and women of our words.
We are. Well, Shy might be an eldritch horror, so we don't know, you know.
We truly don't know what Shy is, but, you know, yeah, I'm covering my bases.
Yeah, that's fair.
We're going to be talking a lot about bases today.
And burning them down and raising them and how all the people in them got massacred and destroyed and brutally tortured in a way that only Warhammer can do, I'm sure.
It's the Horus Heresy, my dude. This is the big one. But I gotta wait before we get into that because we gotta shout on out. So yes, we hit 1,000 on Patreon. Giant fist bumps. No handholds, you know, it's COVID. To all the people. You
gotta do the elbow. The elbow bumps.
Do the elbow. Do the hip bump.
Elbow bumps. Yeah, hip bumps. Sure. Wear your masks when you do it. You know.
Make sure, absolutely, double bag it if you gotta.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta be alive to hear Adeptus Ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Stay safe.
So with that, we hit a fantastic milestone. It has been absolutely fantastic. A huge shout out to those over at the Discord server as well. They are fantastic people. We're having some great conversations with them. Of course, being a part of the Patreon will get you access to the Discord server. And really, we've just been having an absolute blast over there. Not only that, but it's a perfect time now too, because this is the one. This is the Horus Heresy. Yeah, this is the Horus Heresy. This is the big one. This is arguably the most important single event in all of Warhammer lore. I mean, you might be like, Necrons and old ones and stuff. You know, that's pretty dang big. But we're talking about the fact that there are 11 books, because if you say more than 11 as a hyperbole, people are like, actually, Bricky, it's 11. Shut up.
We see you, comment section. We see you. This is a podcast, but we read those comments.
That's not the point. The point, I don't have to get it exact. I'm just saying there's a lot of goddamn books.
Ton of books.
Actually, truth be told, if I'm being actual-lead quite often, it does mean I'm doing my job right, because the whole point of this podcast is to condense everything. And if I'm actually dreading this one a little bit, because the amount of actualies I'm probably going to hear from this one, the Horus Heresy, the biggest one, is going to be rough. So I'm bracing myself.
This is the topic. When I first started in, I was like, oh, I like painting Warhammer minis for fun and don't care about the lore. Everyone was still like, but you should probably read the Horus Heresy. You should probably know what happened in the Horus Heresy. It's the big thing. It's emps. It's depraved. It's holy shit. And yeah, so this, even if you know nothing about Warhammer, you still know about the Horus Heresy.
And I mean, there's like that little famous image you get of Horus and the Emperor, and like kind of that old, like, I don't know what the drawing style is, but it's pretty plastered all over the place. So really, I had to get all of my heresy coughs out before we get really into this.
You don't want to be practicing heresy while talking about the Horus Heresy.
I don't play Death Guard. I'm not a Nurgle man. But with that all under wraps, I'm going to be talking about 4 major events in this thing. Obviously, it's probably going to be a longer episode than normal, but overall, the 4 main events I really want to touch on are going to be the Burning of Prospero, which involves Leman Russ and Magnus the Red.
We have nothing wrong.
Nothing. Well, we'll see about that. We have the Isstvan 3 Atrocity, which is also less important compared to the Isstvan 5 Massacre, also known as the Drop Site Massacre, which we will also talk about, but important nonetheless. As I said, Drop Site Massacre, and then, of course, the Siege of Terra and the Battle on the Vengeful Spirit. There are plenty, and oh, I do mean plenty of things that I will be skipping over, but I'm hoping to cover them in their various Legion episodes we do. So, for instance, like I'm going to say now, Mortarion and the Death Guard joined Horus in his heretical campaign to overthrow the Emperor. Now, he didn't just be like, I'm down for that, man. Let's do it. There's a whole thing with this douchebag named Typhus. There's a whole thing, but we'll talk about that whole thing in his respective episode. The only thing we will really cover involving that kind of thing will be the Thousand Sons, which is the Magnus, which is the Burning of Prospero. But for everyone else, the World Eaters, the Iron Warriors, names that you probably don't even know, they'll have their own individual episode on how they turn traitor.
Sweet. Looking forward to Typhus, because the last episode you said his many fucks.
Fucks.
And he's kind of like Erebus or something, I think you said?
Yeah, he's like the Death Guard version of Erebus. He's kind of like a douchebag. And he kind of wanted more than he got, but he's kind of the reason the Death Guard turned traitor, give or take, but he's also real stinky.
Well, all the Death Guard are real stinky, aren't they? Like, that's their thing.
Stinky.
They're just like, they've got stomachs that have big mouths and teeth and tongues, and they're all decaying. Ugh.
Yeah, nasty boys. So, let's get into this, shall we?
Let's shall.
Let's shall. All right. So, if we do a little recap, Erebus, while it may not have all been him, he certainly helped, causing lots of problems. Lorgar received the largest public spanking of all time, and then because of that, Erebus is like, "Hey, I know some gods that don't mind worship." And so now the word bearers have basically turned traitor at this point. They're all gone. Now, also, Horus and the Lunar Wolves, or Luna Wolves, he had his little vision after being shanked. He saw the Emperor being a horrible, horrible guy and all this bad things going on. It's like, oh, I gotta get rid of the Emperor. He's stupid. But as all these things come about, I'm skipping over a large portion of the recruitment of everyone. But in the long and short of it, basically, what our main man Horus did is he got about 3 to 4 other legions to go with him. You had the Sons of Horus, which were the Luna Wolves, Horus's group. You had the World Eaters with Primarch Angron. Can you guess what Angron's stick is?
He's angry?
He's so fucking angry that he removed the parts of his brain that didn't make him angry so he could be angrier. This is not a meme.
Did he really?
He
just
actually
lobotomized all of the parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, just so he could always be angry.
Yep. Angron.
That's such a Warhammer thing to do.
I know, it's the best. Then you had the Death Guard. You know the Death Guard.
No,
you had also the Emperor's Children with the Primarch of Fulgrim, which is in competition with Sanguinius for the sexiest Primarch. Emperor's Children do turn Slanesh at some point as well.
Oh,
all of them. They're like the main 4, right? Horus, World Eaters, Death Guard, Emperor's Children. All those boys turn traitor. And I guess I could start off with the Isstvan 3 Atrocity, and then we'll move into Prospero.
Okay.
So basically, all these boys, they decide, they've turned traitor. They've all joined Horus's crusade. And in the beginning, it wasn't quite all like, it wasn't just all like, yeah, chaos gods. It was very much like a usurp the emperor civil war kind of coup. It wasn't really meant to be like, oh yeah, blood for the blood god. I can't wait to kill people. It was very much like, it started off with that. The emperor is an unfit leader. Horus knows what he's doing better. Gotta get rid of him.
So it started off for like just reasons. Like they weren't looking to like widespread chaos and take over the universe or anything like that. It was just like, Emperor's bad. Like we need a new leader. This is like, he's gonna ruin everything. It wasn't necessarily just like, oh yeah, spread chaos gods.
Yeah, pretty much. As far as it comes out, well, I mean, obviously at that point, Horus, after his vision and accepting the ritual, he's kind of a servant of the gods. But he doesn't really know it, and he's not necessarily attempting to know it,
right,
so to speak, because, you know, obviously he's being very, very cautious in what he's trying to do. However, the first thing, and this is generally an issue that everyone tends to have, is that whenever you do any kind of coup, you know, not everyone in your group is turning traitor. You know, like some people aren't necessarily going to turn traitor. And in fact, about 2/3 of all these various legions went traitor, but about 1/3 of them didn't.
Oh.
And that's, you know, that's a problem. Now,
That's
obviously this other third didn't know 2/3 went traitor, but even so, they were like, okay, you know, this is a problem we got right here.
Yeah.
So their simple plan, it was a very simple plan. Basically, those 1/3 people, they got sent down in I believe it's the Isvan system, is why it's Isvan 3, Isvan 5, you know? And basically what happened is that with everything going on, your good man, either Big E or I think it was maybe Rogel Dorn or someone, said, hey, there's an insurrection down here on Isvan 3. Things got bad. The planetary governor is a shit. Something's going on. You need to take your boys and you need to attack this planet and deal with the problem, whatever the problem really was. It's not important. So they sent all of those 1/3 people down there.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
This is. Oh no.
And promptly, directly after sending all the loyalist guys down there, they virus bombed the planet. Like,
of course they did.
Of course they did. They just saturated it.
Jesus Christ.
So the first thing they do, you got to get rid of the loyalist people. So you know what? Hey guys, go down there and fight the war. And then from their ships, they just went. Fucking. It was pretty bad. It was like, oh no, here comes poison from the sky.
Yikes.
It was pretty.
Wait, so what exactly is a virus bomb? Is it just like it decays whatever it touches, or
pretty much? It's like firing down like. Remember like white phosphorus from like Spec Ops: The Line and shit?
Oh god, it's like that?
But like way worse. It's like parasites, it eats flesh, it like burns through armor.
Oh god. That's terrible.
Yeah, it basically is just like I'm gonna saturate this. I'm gonna turn the planet's oxygen to anthrax.
Oh Jesus! You couldn't just nuke them?
No, you can't just nuke them. They might live.
Oh, that's true. Everybody lives through the nuking in Warhammer. That's right. There's always some asshole that survives a nuking.
Look at Krieg.
Yeah, the Krieg thrived on nuke planets. Yeah,
and they're just guardsmen. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, that's true.
It's known as the. It's known as the life.
For sure, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is known as the Life Eater virus. So.
What a great name.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's genetically designed to quickly spread and destroy all organic cellular structures it infects, reducing all planetary life, whether flora or fauna, to undifferentiated organic sludge of biochemicals.
Jesus
and organic gases as a byproduct, both of which are highly flammable.
Oh, of course. Jesus Christ. Who made this?
I don't know. Probably the Emperor.
Oh, yes.
As far as I'm concerned, it's his fault.
All right, cool. Everything is going to be the M's fault this episode, I think.
Pretty much.
Fair, right? Yeah.
So, basically, I mean, some lived, some took a shelter because I have to mention him because if I don't, someone will, Luton will be at my door with a gun. A Death Guard, I think he's a captain, named Nathaniel Guerrero, figured out what was happening a little bit beforehand, and he was like, yo, dudes, you're about to get fucked. Get indoors. And so a couple of people survived, and they had to kind of like do a siege for a bit, which cost Horus quite a bit of time, which he was rather annoyed by that. But Nathaniel Guerrero and a group of he was a Death Guard captain with like a vessel. He bailed, and he was like, I gotta warn everybody. Oh my God, Horus is traitor.
No.
So
okay.
he ran. I mean, I think without his actions, I think chaos would have taken over. because they wouldn't have had time to like reinforce the Terra and shit.
Right.
So there is a pretty damn good chance that they would have won without this guy's help. But I only mentioned him a little bit. I'll talk more about him when we talk about the Grey Knights and Malkador the Sigillite, because he takes a big role in that. But I have to mention him because if I don't, people are going to get mad at me. So that happens.
They get mad regardless. So who cares? Really?
Yeah, they are. But yeah, whatever. So that happens. You know, that's what happened. It occurred. Everyone went crazy, and they went through the murder, and they did their virus bombing, and then that's Isstvan 3. I'm covering that one pretty quickly because it's not. I don't want to talk too much about it. But let's talk about the Battle of Prospero next. Now, I'm not quite sure the timeline at which each of these things occur. So I might have like, oh, this may have occurred like before or after Isstvan 3. That's not really the point. It's just like these are the major events. All I do know is the drop site massacre and Siege of Terra last. So, the Battle of Prospero. Do you know what planet Prospero is?
I know that is Magnus and the Thousand Suns planet.
Let's talk about Magnus.
Yeah, let's talk about Magnus and how he did nothing wrong. They were just nerds trying to study up on the Psyker stuff,
They were
right?
just nerds, bunch of nerds. And you know what happens to nerds? They get their ass beat. So, we were all
Big
nerds.
jocks.
By the stupid wolfy jocks.
Yeah, the wolf jocks came and fucked everything up.
Magnus got picked last for dodgeball, and he's like, I refuse. How dare you? So, we covered the part where Magnus was like, yo, Big E, Dad, this is some great Psyker shit. And his dad's like, never do that again.
Yeah. Don't study Psyker stuff. It's bad.
So,
and I won't tell you why.
I'm not saying why. Don't you dare do that. Yeah. So Magnus went home and he was like, I'm going to do it because my dad's stupid and he doesn't understand. He doesn't get it.
He doesn't rule my life. It's not a phase.
He doesn't understand me. But obviously Magnus was like such a powerful sorcerer. Look at all of this power at my fingertips. Like why in the hell shouldn't I use this? Mm-hmm. It's quite obvious that he really wanted the Emperor to see how powerful and useful the psychic powers are, because he wants him to, he wants acceptance from his dad, and so he decided to reach into the warp, and he tried to get like a vision, or he had a vision, and his vision, he saw everything. He saw Horus, turn traitor, he saw the Death Guard, all the legions mobilizing, he saw everything. And he was like, oh no, oh my God. But ironically, the one thing he didn't see was his own fate.
Yep.
Only one person, only one person didn't know what happened, and it was him. He saw Horus, he saw Leman Russ, he saw everyone, but he didn't see what happened to him, which was obviously the work of our good friend Tzeentch, the trickster douchebag he is. Because Tzeentch decides to be a little asshole and mess around with fate quite a bit, as we know.
Mm-hmm. Well, if Magnus had seen what he was to become, this whole thing would also have been prevented, I suppose.
Exactly. So what Magnus did, he's like, I need to warn the Emperor immediately. And at the same time, what he could have done is just travel to Terra.
Or pick up the phone and call Dad. Come on.
Yeah, just pick up the phone.
Just pick up the phone.
He didn't want to do that. And this is probably why the people call Magnus an idiot, because he didn't do this. Well, he wanted to prove the usefulness and the power of his psychic abilities. He wanted to prove how useful and important this kind of thing is. And I'm going to prove it to my dad. So what he did was, instead of flying there, he reached out to the Emperor psychically. He decided to speak to him from a long distance that way, because the Emperor's also a psychic.
Yep, he is.
It works.
He's a big psyker. Yeah.
He's a big psyker. So what Magnus did is he actually ended up creating like a version of himself, almost like a hollow projection, right dead center in the Imperial Palace, right next to his dad, through all of the warp manifesting and all that craziness. And he was like, Dad, shit's fucked. Horus turned traitor. Everything's gone to shit. Everything is, oh my God, it's so bad. Holy crap. What do you think the Emperor did?
I would assume at first hearing that his best boy Horus turned traitor, he'd be like, "Fuck you, that's bullshit," and not believe it.
Close. I mean, pretty much. Basically, the Emperor we were talking was working on the Webway project, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to make the Webway project, he needed a gigantic psychic barrier to stop demons from causing him problems.
Oh, right.
And so, do you know what Magnus's little stunt did?
Doesn't it like collapse the whole fucking thing?
He took a sledgehammer to one of the windows.
And then all of like the chaos warp shit goes crazy, and like don't like what is it, like thousands of psychers just instantaneously or something?
Yep, a shitload of psychers in the Imperial Palace just straight up die, and Malcador's like, oh no, what the hell? And basically he blew a giant hole in his freaking Webway project, and now demons can get in.
Yeah.
And now, which means demons can enter like Terra, like Earth, right where he's standing, and it's like, Magnus, you dumbass.
He didn't know. How was he supposed to, if Ems was like, hey, if you do this, you're gonna punch a hole in this thing and it's gonna ruin the project and Terra's gonna be kind of fucked, and he could have warned him.
Even more than that, like, Magnus didn't know what he was building on Terra because Ems didn't tell him why he left.
Yeah, that's true. He had no reason to be cautious of it.
No, he had no idea. So naturally, this forces the Emperor to now stay on like the Golden Throne to constantly keep the demons out, like never-endingly. But the Emperor is furious, not only for fucking up his project, but also Magnus specifically went against his orders.
Yeah.
He said don't do psychic shit. And then he's like, I'm gonna warn my dad through psychic shit. Like, no.
How did you think he was gonna react?
So basically, with that, the Emperor now being forced to be on the throne to keep the demons out the whole time because of the giant hole he created, went to Leman Russ and he was like, hey, Leman Russ, I need you to go, like, Magnus is obviously the traitor. Look what he's done.
Yeah.
You need to go capture him and bring him back to Terra for justice. And Leman Russ is like, yeah, I'll get that fucking nerd, dude. Yeah, woof, 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 woof.
I don't know why I could just picture just like all of like Leman Russ and his whole what is he, the Space Wolves?
Space Wolves.
All just go whoop 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 whoop, like
got nerds to stick into a locker.
Air, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they all have the one hand in the air and they're just like woof 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 woof. So on his way to Prospero, now Magnus right now realizes kind of what he did, and he's like, oh man. Darn. So he kind of just chilled. And eventually Leman Russ and his full-on fleet of the Space Wolves ended up orbiting the planet. But what Magnus didn't do, and he used his psychic powers to this, he made it so that they were not aware of the Space Wolves' like arrival. So when the Space Wolves as like kind of like a penance, right? As kind of like an idea, like I'm very sorry for what I've done. I have made a horrible error. So like his orbital batteries, his anti-aircraft cannons, all that stuff was not activated at all.
So they wouldn't even defend themselves when their retribution came. They would just take it as sort of like penance?
Well, so originally Leman Russ's plan or his orders were to capture Magnus and bring him back to justice. Along the way, this guy called Horus, not known by Leman Russ to have turned traitor, was like, yeah, Leman, new orders. Emperor wants you to fucking burn his place to the ground and kill Magnus.
Oh.
And Leman Russ was like, woo, 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 hell yeah.
Woof, 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 yeah, go, go, go.
I mean, Magnus and Leman did not like each other. Leman in particular did not like Magnus. He thought all that witchcraft sorcery shit was a bunch of malarkey. He hated all the book reading. He's like, why aren't you fighting and got wolves and shit? Why are we some kind of nerd? Like, they did not like each other. And so for him, he's like, all right, I guess I'll kill him.
Leman Russ is such a jock. Oh my god.
He's not a very good guy. No, he maybe shouldn't have done what he did.
Yeah, oh boy. I didn't like Leman Russ before. Don't really like him now.
He's a bit of a jock. He's a bit of an asshole. So Leman Russ, with everything going on, and Horus was like, yeah, kill them all. And Leman Russ was like, all right. He then began opening up an orbital bombardment on Prospero, and the Thousand Sons were caught woefully off guard by this.
Yeah, I imagine so, since all their stuff was turned off.
Like they suffered casualties in like the hundreds of thousands, like all the civilians.
Oh.
It was real bad. It was an absolute slaughter. And by the time they actually kind of, because they were all sorcerers, so they have like these giant pyramids and stuff on their planet, hence why they have like that Egyptian theme.
Yeah.
And they had like, eventually when they kind of got their stuff better, when they start kind of regroup, they were able to create like psychic force field bubbles. You played Mass Effect, like biotic barriers and shit.
Sure.
Stuff like that to keep people away. And then eventually, I'm paraphrasing a lot because this is a big battle. I'm pretty sure it's like a whole book or 2 or 12. I don't know. Don't actually me. But, eventually the tide turns a little bit, and then, like, okay, the Thousand Sons' psychic powers are starting to really cause Space Wolves problems. But then, did I talk about the Sisters of Silence at all?
I don't think so.
So, do you know what a blank is? Did I talk about a blank?
Blank?
Or a pariah? I don't think I did. Okay, long story short, everyone has a soul in the warp, right?
Okay.
These are people who have a genetic fault where they don't have a soul in the warp. And so if you're near them, you experience large amounts of like being uncomfortable. Like it's almost like they're radiating like just a massive aura of uncomfortableness and you don't like them. The Sisters of Silence in particular are like, they're all mute or they choose not to speak, but they work with the custodians for the Emperor. Their main goal though is anti-psyker, because it may make a normal person uncomfortable, but a psyker like loses their fucking minds. Like all of these sorcerers were trying to attack, and then the Sisters of Silence came by, and it's like a giant null zone of like removing your soul from the area. So all of the sorcerers started like puking blood, and they started like scratching at their helmet necks to try to pull their helmets off because they couldn't breathe, and like ripping the flesh from their throats. Like
God,
it's like. Any kind of death is preferable to a psyker being near any kind of like blank. It's horrible.
God.
It makes you go insane. You'd rather pull your eyes out than actually be near these people. They're pretty awful.
Jesus.
They're pretty freaking awful. They look really cool though. The sisters look pretty great. The Sisters of Silence, that is.
Should I put up a couple pictures in the Discord? They are very cool.
They're super cool looking. But eventually they deployed those, and then the Psychers of Magnus got even more fucked up. And during this entire time, during this long battle, Magnus is just kind of chilling in his big pyramid, like not fighting, not taking a part of it, because he really just didn't know what to do. And
wow, really? He was just chilling because like, I don't know what to do. I guess I'll just let everybody die.
He's like, he wants to have penance for what he did, but at the same time, his legion's dying, and he really he didn't know what to do, because if he went out to attack back, that would kind of cement himself as the traitor.
Yeah, it sure would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like obviously you could say that these guys are defending themselves, but Magnus coming back, like that could be a big part. So, eventually after enough time, he went to his closest advisor or captain or something. This guy named Araman. And Araman, he's like, hey, I'm Araman. They got this crazy jewel, all right? And it looks like a scarab or something in a big old fucking pyramid. I want you to go there and do this ritual. And he's like, what the hell will it do? And he's like, don't worry, you'll know what to do when you do the ritual. Don't worry, buddy.
Don't worry about it. Sure, in Warhammer, when someone says "don't worry," immediately I, as the listener, am like, "Oh boy, I'm worried.
I'm worried.
I'm real worried now."
So then came the big hardcore moment, which was Magnus coming out of his little temple, clad in his giant golden armor and his nipple horns, and he just came on out and he just started bodying people. Just like mind lightning bolts, like ripping people apart with all of his psychic powers, glaving, like, Magnus was out there. But then your boy Leman Russ came, and this becomes one of the more iconic fights. Is the Wolf versus the Crimson King, and then you had your Leman Russ versus Magnus fight, and did they go hard? They went so hard. Fucking Magnus did all of his lightning powers and all of his psychic powers, but Leman Russ, he's such a savage. He's so fast and he's so tough. I don't know, you know that part in The Dark Knight Rises? And most of the fight scenes in The Dark Knight Rises I don't think are particularly fantastic, but there's the ending fight between Bane and Batman, and Bane's just swinging like mad. He breaks a pillar or something. It's like Leman Russ is like that times 10. He's a flurry. He's just a blur. And after enough time, they suffered so many injuries. If I'm not mistaken, Leman Russ dislocated and snapped one of Magnus's arms, so he couldn't do all this stuff. I think he shanked one of his eyes out.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's because he has his eye is a big important psyker thing, and so he was just shank, and
shank.
Gotcha, bitch. I think Leman Russ got punched in his breastplate so hard it shattered and destroyed one of his hearts. Because they have multiple hearts because they're fancy.
Yeah.
And then of course, in true Jock Leman Russ fashion, he lifts up a broken, bloodied Magnus, and then fucking drives him into his knee, and performs a good old backbreaker.
He gives him the Batman break, huh?
He does it. He does the good old all the way over his head, right over the knee, and he breaks his damn spine.
Damn. Break your back, make you humble.
That's one of the constant memes. Is Magnus's spine being broken is always a constant joke.
Poor Magnus.
Poor Magnus.
So Magnus is Super Psyker, right?
Oh yeah, hardcore.
Is there a reason they didn't just send one of the Sisters of Silence to just be sup and just make him go stir crazy because he's a psyker? And don't they fuck up psykers?
They do, but as with psychic energy, as anything like that, there's always levels. Sisters of Silence might really harm Magnus, but it's not necessarily going to be his full kryptonite. Gotcha. Whereas lesser psychers would have lots of problems, maybe demons would have lots of problems, but it's the same reason why Leman Russ, even though he was getting attacked by psychic energy, and even though Leman Russ is not a psyker, because normally you want a psyker to fight a psyker, right? He's too strong, he's too tough.
Oh, okay. So Magnus is at such a different level that it just doesn't.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I say that. Yeah, a whole new level. I go with that.
Yeah, he's in a whole new world. Yeah.
I wasn't really thinking. I was thinking maybe he's just a certain. He's got blessings of Tzeentch. I'm no, I think he just is at a different level.
Okay.
So after the great backbreaker, after the wrestling move and everything, and then all the wolf boys are back there woof woof woof. Ahriman led his slightly over 1,000 remaining members of the Thousand Sons.
Look at that! Look at those guys.
Would have known.
Yeah,
he led them back.
Them the Thousand Sands.
About to be. So Ahriman went up to the jaded, the little jade in the breastplate, and as Magnus was basically just about to die, as Leman Russ was about to shank the shit out of him, he said to Ahriman, he's quote, "This is my last gift to you." And as that last psychic spell that Ahriman casted with the Scarab Jade, all the rest of the Thousand Sons and Magnus just disappeared.
Oh.
sent right into the warp.
Oh, okay.
Yep, right into the Eye of Terror and materialize onto a demon world known as the Planet of Sorcerers.
Well, that seems like a good place for them to be. I mean, if you gotta be somewhere in the demon world, then you're Magnus and the Thousand Suns. I guess that's an okay vacation spot, right?
I'd say it's decent.
Yeah.
Now,
could be worse. You could be dead.
You could be dead. I'm not going to get too far into how they turn into dust and everything, but they're all dust now. They're
all dusty boys. Yep.
Pretty much all of them. I think besides like Armin and a few. But at this point, this is basically when Magnus was like, I have nothing. I have nothing. My father has betrayed me. My brother has nearly killed me. There is literally only one avenue I can go, and that's to be a servant of Tzeentch.
Oof.
Like this truly is the last. Either he was tricked into it, or simply put, he chose it because like Magnus. They say did nothing wrong because he was literally backed into a corner.
Yeah.
What else
really
could he have done?
Anything else other than die?
Yeah, and
that's really the only choice he had, right?
Yeah, like what are you gonna do? Be like, I should have died, loser.
Leman Russ is like, yeah, you should have died, bitch.
Oh yeah, he's pissed. Leman Russ is so pissed. He was so excited for that death. He wanted to fucking take his head and make it like a trophy. You know, it's wolf boys. They're like Vikings.
Oh yeah, he probably would made a big old trophy out of Magnus too.
Yeah, hell, yeah, he had no despair. Like a lot of times in the heresy, the brothers fighting brothers are like they don't feel good about it. But Leman Russ was like, "Yeah, backbreaker, woo!
I want my trophy, bitch."
That's the Undertaker,
a pile driver.
So that was basically the Burning of Prospero. We'll talk a little bit more about it when we talk about the Thousand Suns. But yeah, good old Prospero, not doing hot.
Didn't do anything wrong. Just did things out of sheer ignorance.
Yep. And you could argue the Emperor was a big fault at that.
Yep. It's the Emperor's fault. Very clearly, Magnus did nothing wrong.
Very clearly.
Very clearly. Indisputable.
Indisputable. So, with the Battle of Prospero, I'm not quite sure if this was like while the next thing, the drop site massacre, or also known as the Isstvan 5 system, was going on at the same time or around the same time or something. But this is arguably, with the exception of the final battle, is the major turning point in the heresy. This is the big one. The big one. Because at the time, Horus, now that they've been warned, because good old Nathaniel Guerrero, our king, warned them of Horus's treachery. And so now you had the Horus, you had the Death Guard, the Emperor's Children, and the World Eaters, right? But unbeknownst to everyone else, the Alpha Legion, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and the Word Bearers, which they actually didn't know the Word Bearers turned traitor, technically.
How could they not know at this point that the word...
don't know, dude.
After what they did to the Word Bearers, like, yeah, I'm sure they'll come help us out. I'm sure Lorgar's forgotten all about that, that burning down his... Yeah,
public spanking.
Yeah, kneeling in the ashes of everything that he loved and held dear. I'm sure he forgot that.
No, it's fine. The four of them are sanctioned on Isstvan 5, the fifth world of the Isstvan system or whatever. And so Big E and all the boys are like, go get him! Fuck him up! Get him! So that's what they do. So a bunch of loyalist factions make their way down there. 3, in fact. The Iron Hands, led by Primarch Ferrus Manus. The Iron Hands are like a Mechanicus Space Marine faction. They believe that flesh is weak. They have like lots of tech and vehicles and servo arms and lots of bionic upgrades. They take a lot of metal and they put them on there. Hence the name Iron Hands.
Is that like an AdMech sub-faction? Or is
that
just completely different?
It's a Space Marine Legion.
Right, but they sound very AdMech.
Well, I say that they're like AdMech just because I think they work closely with AdMech and they have a lot of AdMech upgrades. But no, they just happen to be one of the Space Marine Legions.
Okay. They're not like a spin-off splinter faction of whatever.
Nah. I mean, everything and everyone that's fighting right now is a Space Marine Legion in its own right. Because there's like 18 of them.
They just sounded so AdMech.
It's very AdMech. It's the Space Marines version of AdMech.
Yeah.
Then you had the Raven Guard. These are jokingly known as your edgy boys with Primarch Corvus Corax. They have lots of like black and white armor with ravens and big birds.
They're the Raven Guard. What do you expect? Of course they're edgy.
They're meant to be like stealth specialists, and they're also like they're big into like jump packs, like jet packs with like the winged idea, and they have like claws of lightning and all this kind of crap. And then the Salamanders, which are my personal favorites. Oh yes, Shai just posted a picture of one of their Raven Guard models. I believe that is a Cravan Shrike. He's actually a really cool model, but his hairdo is something else.
He's got the emo swoosh.
I know he does.
The armor is badass, and the jetpack is super dope. But that swoosh, come on, man.
He's got the over one eye swoosh. I know.
How does he fly like that? With only like his depth perception is all off.
And then last but not least, the Salamanders. My personal favorite Space Marine faction. The Salamanders are one of the first founded with Primarch Vulcan. The Salamanders are all black, but like not like modern day black, where like you could say like people who are black nowadays is more like a dark brown color. Like they have like pitch black, like ash colored skin. Like it is very dark, and they have blazing red eyes. Because their planet was a horribly volcanic planet known as Nocturne.
Ooh. Yeah, Shai just posted a picture of them in the
Vulcan.
Discord. God, I mean...
Lots of dragon heraldry as well. Lots of dragon heraldry.
I was gonna say, they would look so fierce, but the contrast between the ash skin and, like, the red eyes with, like, this bright green armor just looks so fucking goofy to me.
I'm not a big fan of the green armor.
I can't take that guy serious.
I'm not a big fan of the green armor, I agree. The glowing red eyes does make them a little goofy, I will admit.
It looks a little strange. It should be like, I don't know, like black with, like, red tinted metals or something. I don't know.
Ironically, they're actually what is known as the nicest Space Marine Legion. They're the only group. They're the only group to allow their Marines to still visit their families, and they constantly put civilian life over their own lives, which Space Marines do not do. And they're even like master crafters. They forge their own weapons. They maintain them themselves. They're like blacksmiths. They're actually super cool, but ironically, they're also the biggest Space Marines. Like their gene seed, like Vulcan is the biggest Primarch. He's huge. But so funny enough, they're like, don't worry, my friends, I am here to save you and your children. And you have this like 9-foot tall, blazing red-eyed dude that's like, do not worry, young child, I will save you.
When you said they were the nicest, I was like, excuse? They look horrible. They look like the kind of people that would like absolutely murder just because it was fun and they like the sound of squishing flesh.
Well, ironically, Vulcan did set an Eldar child on fire because he was angry once. But we'll talk about that later. I love that story. It makes me laugh in like a morbid way. Don't worry about it. Okay. All right. Getting off track here. Sure. Getting off track here.
Moving right along.
They're loyal, all right? They're loyalists. So basically, the Iron Hands and their Primarch Ferris, he's probably the douchiest one. Them, Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard, and Vulcan of the Salamanders, they all dropped to deal with Horus the Death Guard, Emperor's Children of the World Eaters. And this is when you got into like a full-on 1v1 war. I'm not sure exactly how many they dropped down into this area, but not only were the Space Marine chapters themselves fighting on this planet after all of their like Thunderhawks and drop pods dropped them in, but also it was the other Space Marines and their Primarchs. So Vulcan with his big hammer was bonking on people. Corvus was flying around in his giant jetpack with his double claws of lightning and his emo haircut, just like slicing down traitors. Ferrus Manch, the Iron Hands, was cutting down different guys, having his servo arms behind him like a little Doc Ock, firing weapons and grabbing fleeing enemies and bringing them back to him. It was crazy. Angron was like dual wielding chainsaws and just screeching his head off. Mortarion
Jesus.
had his big scythe and he was just cleaving people. Fulgrim, being as beautiful as he was like a dance, just sliding between enemies and slitting their throats as the Emperor's children. It was a total. It's super badass. If we had the money, this would be a damn good movie. But
Sounds
so
like
there.
Endgame.
It kind of is. It pretty much is the end game fight, as close as you're gonna get to it.
Yeah.
So as this is going on, Horus is chilling in his his big old castle on the way back. Just kind of overseeing everything because that's he's the war master. And he doesn't want to take a bolter right to the head.
Sure.
Combine that with the fact that also a large contingent of the Admech have actually joined Horus because Horus promised them the spoils of war, of like the STC constructs and all of the major technology that he gets. So now he's got access to tons of like knights and like Titan legions and they're called the Dark Mechanicus. Or Mechanicum. They're dude, if you can imagine the things that Admech get up to, but then backed by chaos.
I didn't know that there was
Dark
a
Mechanicus. They are hugely important. We'll have a whole episode on them, but they are so important, and it sucks that they're not represented on the tabletop because they are super fucking important.
I was gonna say, when looking for like minis and just like scanning around every now and then, I was like, I don't recall there being a section for Dark Mechanicus, and they sound real cool because I already love the Admech, and if you're telling me you can have some wonky ass chaos shit with the Admech, that'd be sick as fuck.
Yep, it is absolutely possible. I hope they eventually make minis. But like,
yeah, I would
most of Mars basically turned traitor. Like a large amount of Mars did. Actually, it may have been the whole thing. I think there were definitely like insurgents that were still in there, fighting the good fight, quote unquote. But they had to constantly hold back Mars because, come on, man, the Admech, they're horrifying. But as the fight raged, right, as things kept on going, basically what occurred was that after all of the loyalist legions, Ferrus Manus, the Salamanders, all those kinds of group, as they kept on making ground, they were starting to push the traitors back. Until the traitors started pushing back, and they kind of had a tug of war. But then, luckily for all of the loyalist factions, for the Salamanders and such, as they were getting pushed back, and they were getting kind of pushed back and back, they weren't too worried because they had reinforcements inbound, thank God, from the Alpha Legion, the Iron Warriors, the Night Lords, and the Word Bearers. And right at that moment, as the loyalists were backing up to reinforce and recuperate, 1 million drop pods with quote unquote loyal factions that were unaware that they had turned traitor landed behind them, and then a just pincer move and a hail of bombs and gunfire landed into the backing up loyalists.
Ooh, that's
yeah, he's like, I sure do love being a loyalist. I sure do love being a loyalist. Oh, look, the Alpha Legion, Iron Warriors, Night Lords, and Warbirds are here to reinforce our position. And then they just start opening fire on them.
Oh, boy. Well, that sucks.
It was very bad. They lost, like, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, how does anybody really survive that? I mean, you're getting pincered by... Ooh.
It was really bad. Like, I think pretty much their entire legion was decimated. Like, they will no longer play a factor into the Horus Heresy. The Iron Hands, the Salamanders, and the Raven Guard were almost entirely annihilated. In fact, so badly so that I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Vulcan was like hit with like a nuclear weapon or something. Or okay, so Vulcan. Okay, so Vulcan. This is something that I kind of don't like. He's something called a perpetual, which means that Vulcan can never truly die. He will like be reduced to atoms, but then the atoms will like reform himself and then he'll come back alive again. I don't like this bit of writing. It makes him immortal, and I think it's a little dumb. But he is that. And so Vulcan, after his entire legion got fucked, was then captured by Night Lord Primarch Conrad Kurz, also known as the most terroristy man of all time, and was subsequently tortured like mad, with Conrad Kurz being like, "Why won't you fucking die?" And he just kept on going. And he like, if Vulcan was anyone else, he would have been dead. If he was anyone else, he would have been dead. Corvus Corax, wrong guy, of the Raven Guard, fought with good old, I believe it was Angron, and they were trading blows like mad, but Angron got the upper hand and was about to kill Corax when at the last second he just blew himself up into the air using his jetpack. So he was able to escape, barely like surviving, gravely wounded in some transports thanks to his jetpack. However, the main battle there was between Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the Iron Hands, and Fulgrim. And the two of them were 1v1ing each other like hardcore. And before anything, before Ferrus could get the upper hand, and Fulgrim, being the swift, beautiful man that he was able to, I think he dislocated his arm, he popped it like out, and then he I think he stabbed his tendons. It's a very big major fight of what was going on at the time. Fulgrim, however, did indeed get the upper hand, and after a little bit of hesitation to doing what he did to his brother, decapitated Ferrus Manus. And then and there, the Primarch of the Iron Hands ceased to be.
Oof. He got a little ahead of himself.
Yep, that was one of the major... I mean, he wanted to hesitate, but I believe it was like the Dark Gods pushing on his arm kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're like, you got to do it. So that was the death of Ferrus Manus is actually, I think, the first major Primarch death. I think it's the first Primarch death. I can't think of another one at the current moment. Besides, I guess, the other two that were expunged from history.
Yeah.
But that's the drop site massacre. That's why it's called that, because
it was a massacre.
It was an absolute bloodbath.
I mean, I'm surprised they only called it a massacre. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I think in total, like 500,000 to 600,000 Space Marines died on the Loyalist side, and only about 22,000 lived.
Jesus.
Like, it is an absolute massacre. The Raven Guard, the Salamanders, the Iron Hands, they ceased to be a factor. And that was kind of the whole point of Horus's, his battles, is that he can't just 1v1 Big E.
Of course not.
He needs to do like strikes, and he needs to do insurrections and trickery, and that was the big one. Like with his power, he was 8 guys strong. Sons of Horus, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, World Leaders, Alpha Legion, Iron War. 5 actually. Wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 4. 4 strong. Sorry. 4 strong. And then not only that, 4 plus 4 means 8. 4 strong in the beginning, 4 stronger after the Alpha Legion when they all came to betray. So it started with 4, now 8, soon to be 9, because now the Thousand Sons are going to pledge themselves to Horus and his cause.
Oh, right. That, yeah.
Because Magnus is upset he's spaghetti.
Well, he can't be anything but upset he's spaghetti. I mean, there's no other option.
It really is. Magnus had a bad time.
There's nothing else for him to do. Can't go back to the Emperor. Sure, might as well turn traitor. What else I got to do?
Finally, last but not least, we have the Siege of Terra. I'm skipping a lot in between. Yeah. There's like Malcador the Sigillite tried to assassinate Horus multiple times, and there's all this kind of stuff. But basically, I'm skipping over that because, oh my god.
There's a lot.
The Siege of Terra is exactly what it sounds like. It is the siege of Terra and the Imperial Palace. Now, understanding what was going on at this point, there were really not many options left for the Loyalists. In fact, in reality, there were basically only 2 Space Marine legions that took part in the siege to help the Imperial Fists with Primarch Rogel Dorm and the White Scars of Jagatai Khan, which were the Mongolian ones, if you forget.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool.
All about the fur. Are they the ones that ride the bikes?
Yeah, they're the Speed Boys.
They're cool.
They're really cool. But Horus, being the insanely intelligent man that he was, he sent out the word bearers to attempt to stop the Ultramarines. Now, that was kind of a doomed plan because the Ultramarines Legion is gigantic.
Yeah.
It is like 400,000, where an average Legion is like 150 to 200,000. But basically, he knew he could not 1v1 Gilliman. Like, it was not going to work. So he had to send over quite a bit, Lorgar and his boys, to stop them. And it actually kind of worked. It worked. They held them at bay for a while. But it wasn't just that he did. It was that was called the Battle of Kalth, or Kaith. Kind of a weird one. But basically, he needed to take as many of the remaining loyalist legions as he could. And he needed to, divide and conquer. You need to segment them, because if you don't, he's not going to be able to fight a one-on-one war. He just doesn't have the power.
Yeah.
So he keeps the Ultramarines held at bay with Lorgar, and then I believe it was the Word Bearers, and not the Word Bearers. That was Lorgar. The World Eaters. My bad. I believe the World Eaters, they also assisted in I think it was either the Siege of Terra, or they also helped with the Battle of Kaith. I'm actually slipping on this one. This is really difficult for me to remember this kind of stuff. I know that the Space Wolves, the Dark Angels, and the Ultramarines were all kept aside. All of them were kept aside. Ultramarines with the Word Bearers. I know that the Night Lords kept one of them at bay. I think it was the Space Wolves they kept at bay. So the Night Lords were sent over there as well, and then another one I don't quite remember stopped the Dark Angels. It's a lot. It was quite a bit. But also thanks to Lorgar's crazy shenanigans, he was able to create like these big old warp storms to cut off the Ultramarines from arriving, because there were just so many of them, right?
Boy, I bet Emps is regretting what he did to Lorgar right about now.
He's not feeling good about it, no sir.
Maybe I shouldn't have burnt everything he loved and cherished to the ground. Oh well.
Oh darn.
Damn it.
But regardless of which got sent where, the long and the short of it is that the three major legions, the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, and the Ultramarines, were all being forced back. And they were all basically having like distraction fights to keep them from being at Terra. The White Scars actually could have helped the Space Wolves, but I think Rogel Dorm was like, "Hey man, we need you back here. Like you gotta go." So they did, and then Horus descended upon the Imperial Palace and Terra in its own right, and it's called the Siege of Terra because not only do you have to deal with the Imperial Fists, which are really freaking good at defending stuff. Like, they are so good at fortifying things, but you also had to deal with the White Scars rolling around at Mach 5, and most importantly, you had to deal with the custodians.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is the palace itself. This is the 10,000 heroes of the custodians, and they do not go down easy. I totally forgot about the Blood Angels. I feel like an asshole. The Blood Angels were also part of it as well. Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, and Horus's closest friend were also a big part of that.
I recall, I don't mean to bring back the YouTube comments. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Sanguinius was actually like the best Primarch," and I know very little about Blood Angels and Sanguinius other than vampires, and they look edgy and cool.
They do look edgy and cool and beautiful. I mean, he looks like Alucard, for God's sake, but Sanguinius is the Primarch of the Blood Angels, and he and Horus were like, they're like best friends. They were literally best friends. They had a huge brotherly bond. So it's kind of going back to like a brother against brother kind of deal.
Gotcha.
And of course, then you also had 2 million guardsmen, but who cares about the guardsmen?
2 million guardsmen? No, man. Who cares?
Lots of guardsmen, obviously, because the Imperial Guard was a big part of it. But
yeah.
In this case, it was the Siege of Terra. because they couldn't just like burn their way in. It was a siege. They had to keep on bombarding it. They had to keep on pushing it. This went on for a while. Sanguinius.
How long is a while?
In Warhammer time, I have no idea. Not super long, because it like a few days or days, I think. I don't entirely know.
Okay.
The problem is that you also had the other battles between the Space Wolves and the Ultramarines and the Dark Angels.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was days, months, years. I truly don't know. Good old Games Workshop does not have a sense of time.
Yeah. I was gonna say in Warhammer, it's like, oh yeah, it lasted a while. Well, how long is that? 60,000 years. What?
Yeah,
yeah, it's like, oh, okay.
I truly don't know, but it was a long time. Yeah, Shai says the entirety of the Horus Heresy is like 5 years, but that's like the entirety of the heresy. The Siege of Terra in its own right, I'm not quite sure. But regardless, they were on a ticking clock because, you know, Ultramarines, Dark Angels, Space Wolves.
Sure.
So
You're holding back for so long.
Yes. So as the and apparently Shai says 5 trillion dead.
That's a lot. That's a fuck ton of people. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, good old 5, just casually 5 trillion.
God damn.
Like I said, no sense of numbers.
The fact that there were even 5 trillion people to kill is pretty impressive. But the fact that 5 trillion wasn't just all of them.
I know, it's so dumb, but so during this period of time of the Siege of Terra, of course, they were, I'm skimping over many details, but they're fighting really hard. The White Scars are doing their fighting. Jagatai Khan is fighting. Rogel Dorn is fighting. Everyone's fighting. I think Rogel Dorn and Angron have like a fight together. It's pretty hardcore. But after all this murder and all this bloodshed, this insane sieging, Sanguinius also fought like a greater demon, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa.
Which is kind of nutty. He has like big ass angel wings and shit, but I don't know. I know you play Thousand Suns, or you collect them. You know, like the Lord of Change, that giant bird thing?
Yeah.
He basically fought a corn version of that called a Bloodthirster.
Oh.
He basically 1v1'd it and beat it, which is nuts.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely nuts.
What a bro.
He's pretty cool. Now, he was fucking wounded as hell, but it hurt badly, but he did it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's pretty goddamn nutty. So with that, after enough time, after the siege was going on, Horus was like, it's taking too long. It's taking too long. It's taking too long. I don't like this at all. And then eventually, after enough time, your boy, I think it was either Erebus. I forget exactly who told him, but people were like, hey, dude, we got word from our super secret dark spies and horrible people. The Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, and the Ultramarines are on their way back. They're coming. They'll be here in about 3 hours. And this came to what might have been the number one greatest gamble and option and choice that Horus chose, because he's like, God damn it! I don't have time. I don't have the resources. I can't finish this. I am going to fail. And trying to leave and like recuperate his losses means that so will the Imperium. And so he took a big freaking gamble. He was on his major flagship called the Vengeful Spirit, which is still around today, by the way. It's being used still. I know, right? What a goddamn ship.
Especially for Horus, what a name for the ship.
The Vengeful Spirit. Yeah, I know. It's super cool.
Very on the nose, but yeah.
Well, most of Warhammer is.
It's true.
So he decided to lower the void shields on his ship, which basically meant that he and people and everyone else could teleport in and out of the ship. And so he lowered it as almost a challenge to Big E. So Big E, currently sitting on the Golden Throne this whole time, keeping the demons out, saw this, and he basically took the bait. He was like, I can teleport myself right into Horus's flagship and end this here. And so what he did, though, but before this, is he went to his best friend, his closest advisor, his buddy Malcador the Sigillite, one of the second most powerful psyker in the galaxy, but still a normal human. And he asked him the last favor to take his spot on the Golden Throne and hold the demons out while he does his business.
Yeah.
And as he did that, he entombed himself into the Golden Throne, and he did it. He pushed the demons away, but man, was it a lot for him. It was very a difficult challenge. And right before Emps left, he made a declaration, said that Malcador the Sigillite will no longer be known as Malcador the Sigillite, but rather known as Malcador the Hero.
Aww.
And I know, right? It's quite sweet. And so, placing him on the Golden Throne, the Emperor teleported himself, as well as, if I'm not mistaken, Sanguinius, a bunch of custodians, and various other like forces, and like his own personal contingent of custodian bodyguards, and also I think maybe Rogel Dorn and Jagatai Khan. Maybe it's just Rogel Dorn. I don't know if Khan was in it or not. I think he might have been, but definitely Rogel Dorn. Into the ship, and they then, Horus being the conniving, smart man as he was, he closed off certain segments of the ship. He routed them. He was leading them like rats in a maze.
Okay.
To kind of fuck around and get them all lost on his gigantic flagship. Finally, the first person to make it to the bridge to meet Horus alone was good old Sanguinius. And Sanguinius, right before he got to Horus went to his closest friend, his big bro, his bro tier friend, and he pleaded with him, like, don't fight now, join me, like don't you see the Emperor's folly, don't you see he's terrible, don't you see yada yada yada. Obviously Sanguinius doesn't want to hear none of this. And so then they had their big fight. But calling it a big fight is a little bit of a overstatement. Being after 1v1ing and putting down a greater demon of Khorne, Sanguinius was quite wounded. And now it's said that he struck a pretty good blow on Horus's chest plate. I'll talk about that later. That's one of those like unreliable narrator things where like some people say he did, some people say he didn't. I'm gonna say he did because it sounds cool.
And because we all like Sanguinian.
We all like Sanguinius. Sanguinius.
Gotcha.
Sanguinius. But after blows were exchanged, Horus proved like absolutely no match. Or other way around, sorry. He was too much of a match for Sanguinius. And with his giant, like, horrifying power claw, strangled Sanguinius to death. Oof. And dropped his body right on the floor in front of him. And that's almost exactly the moment when Big E arrived to, see what the hell had happened. Which is why in that really famous image, that's Sanguinius on the ground, dead. Yep. And that's dead. Actually a pretty fucking sad moment. I don't do it justice because I'm trying to shorten it all. But closest friends, closest brothers, Emperor's favorite son. Emperor comes in seeing his favorite son who just strangled the life out of the Primarch of the Blood Angels, his best buddy. Like, it's pretty rough. This is where men cried.
If Sanguinius hadn't fought that greater demon and he was like full strength, would he have even been a match for Horus at that point, or would it have been closer?
It would have been closer, absolutely, but Horus had the Dark Gods backing him up. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I mean, maybe.
So Sanguinius still had no chance at really beating him.
Oh, I wouldn't say no chance, but I'd argue that Horus was probably more powerful. It's a little difficult to really determine because it's different. Like, a greater demon is just a big-ass demon, right? It's not like a tactician like Horus is.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure. We're going into what ifs at that point, but really, regardless, Horus was pretty nutty. So it's unsurprising. Fair. But then Big E came there, and Big E was like, Horus, you ignorant slut. Look what you've done.
Word for word.
And
verbatim, that's what he said.
Verbatim. He's just like, Dwight, you ignorant slut. Now, naturally, Horus was like, come on, Dad, don't you see your folly? Bow beneath me and be part of my cause, and I'll spare you your life. The Imperium was founded upon lies, and, I know what you did to the Thunder Warriors, and all this kind of thing. And Big E has heard this song and dance before. And he's like, yeah, fuck that. I ain't bowing. Think I'm an idiot? I wasn't born yesterday. I don't even know if I was born.
Yeah.
So naturally, they came into their big 1v1, the Horus versus the Emperor 1v1, and it is catastrophic. The fact they're fighting each other like the way they are, with glancing blows of each other, is insane. Now, granted, Horus proved no match. Horus would not at all deal with the Ems, but you know that one thing that the Emperor kept aside. He had a little bit of it. A little bit of thing called compassion. And he just couldn't bring himself to landing the final blow on his favorite son.
His son, yeah.
He just couldn't do it. And with that time, that proved to be a bit of his undoing. The Horus disarmed the Emperor by slicing the tendon in his wrist. He's broke his arm backwards, and he slit the Emperor's jugular.
Oh,
and then he battered his armor to Emperor got bodied, and he even you know what he did to seal the deal? Can you guess?
To seal the deal? When I think Warhammer sealing the deal, immediately I'm thinking poison and nukes, but I don't think that's gonna play a part here.
No, sir, he did the backbreaker.
Oh, did he really?
He actually did. Well, I don't think we're at that part in the Siege of Terra books yet, but I'm reading the wiki right now, and they said backbreaker, so god damn it, I'm going with backbreaker. Woo, 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 woo. Oh, god damn it.
Oh, man, the Iron Sheik would be thrilled with the way Warhammer...
It's... Yeah, right here on the wiki, verbatim. Horus raised his father high over his head and broke his back over his knee. Oh yeah, what else we got here? A psychic blast seared the flesh from the Emperor's face, destroying one of his eyes. Ripped his right arm from his socket.
Jesus.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ, Horus went to town. Now this next part is a part that is known as myth and legend and might not have actually happened, but I want to talk about it because it's kind of cool. Basically, there's a story of a singular person who saw this happening, and right before the Emperor was, to be killed, because he was kind of holding Big E's body in the air, I've won, all this kind of stuff. There was, after throwing his body to the ground, there was the statement that one lone individual stood in the way between the battered Emperor and Horus. Now, what this individual was is dependent on who you ask. Or it could just be a story for, a little bit of morale boosting. But one of the stories that me as an Imperial Guard player truly likes was that it was a man known as Olanius Pius, a singular guardsman. One guardsman stood in the way of Horus and the Emperor and said no. Now, if you ask the Blood Angels, with the death of their Primarch, they said it was a Blood Angels Terminator. If you ask the Custodians, they'd say it was a Custodian who was there. It's one of those, the person changes depending on who you ask. Because it's more of a sense of heroism, One who has nothing, in the face of unstoppable odds, still put himself in the way of the Emperor to protect him. Which is why I like the Guardsman one, because it's a normal fucking dude with a fucking lasgun stood in between Horus and the dying Emperor and was like, I will not let you kill the Emperor. Which it's pretty manly. It's pretty ballsy, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And so it's a very good, rousing tale, right? Now, do you know what happened to this individual?
I'm assuming he gets crushed like a little bitty baby bug.
He is flayed alive by a glancing psychic blast from Horus and a maniacal laugh.
Jesus.
And that, right, which is why I kind of believe it's a guardsman more, because if it's a custodian, like Horus is powerful, but custodians are really tough, and I don't know. But with seeing that happen, seeing this lone soul just get like fucking annihilated through like the sheer joy of Horus doing so, that's when the Emperor was like, this is no longer my son. This truly is a chaos monstrosity. This is no longer my son.
Oh, so he loses the compassion
and with a full, just like, he fucking spirit bombed him with his full on psychic power, all of his pure psychic energy. He fired a lance so strong, and it pierced through the little chest plate that Sanguinius cut. And at that point in time, the demonic gods kind of like let go of their grip on Horus.
Oh, those fuckers.
And so the last moment before Horus's death was that of like regret and sorrow and like, oh my god, what have I done? And as that happened, Horus was just like, I cannot understate how dead he is. Okay? I cannot understate this. All right, like so whenever you're killed as a chaos being, you go into the warp, right? Your soul goes to the warp. Sure. And you can be revived. If you kill a greater demon, depending on how hard you kill the son of a bitch, he'll come back like 500 years later. Because that's just how demons and souls in the warp work. Okay. You know, you're functionally immortal. You're a servant of the dark gods. You die, you go back to the warp, and then you can come back later. Horus was all F forward from existence. His soul, his pure soul, and his all memory of him was purged from like the plane of existence. Horus will never come back. Wow. Horus will never ever come back. He was completely deleted from the timeline. I cannot underestimate how dead this son of a bitch is. He is so fucking dead.
He is as dead as you could possibly be.
I have never seen a man being all F forward from existence this hard.
Jesus.
Now,
holy shit.
So, as this occurred, very shortly after, Rogel Dorn comes and sees his father's bloodied, dead body, or dying body, very much dying body on the ground. And he's like, oh no, my dad. And so he ran up to Big E, grabbed him, of course, and then teleported back to the Golden Throne. And him and Jagatai Khan, Primarch of the White Scars, started moving him back to the throne, where Malkador was like really struggling to hold on. But right at the last second, as the Emperor was dying, Malkador released his grip on the Golden Throne and transferred his teeny, and I mean tiny bit of life essence, which Psychers can do. They can like give you their life essence into the Emperor to keep him alive for a few minutes more. And right as that happened, the Emperor's last thing he saw, the last thing that he was able to see before he was entombed on the Golden Throne for the rest of eternity, was his best friend being turned into ash. Malkador just crumbled. His entire body crumbled into an ashy dust at his like feet.
Oh boy, that's brutal. That's rough.
So,
jeez.
Big E is then placed on the Golden Throne. He gives a couple more words to Rogel Dorn and Jagatai Khan, and now he's been there since. The Golden Throne of Terra houses the Emperor's dying, rotting corpse, as he has to perpetually, for eternity, hold back the demons coming in from Magnus's little charade and do his best to keep the entire Imperium from dying. And that is why Malkador's final gift to the Emperor is why they have to sacrifice 1,000 Psychers to the Emperor every single day to give them his life essence so that he can keep living.
Jesus.
You know about the 1,000 Psychers a day thing, right?
I did. I was about to ask you about that before you brought it up. I was like, is it true that they need to like sacrifice thousands of Psychers a day just to keep Big Imps alive?
Yep, because that's how they learned with Malkador's actions that you can actually transfer like the soul of somebody to another person. So that's why now, in order to keep him alive on that Golden Throne, they need those Psychers.
So when he's on this golden throne and he's getting this psych, is he aware, or is he like in like a catatonic state and he's just a barrier?
It's unsure. He's definitely not as doing as hot as he used to. We'll say that.
No kidding.
But I believe that he is to a point somewhat aware. But okay. I don't know to like the extent. Okay. It's difficult to truly determine. However, he definitely does have a presence in the warp. That's for certain.
Okay, gotcha.
With that though, that really is at the end of where the Emperor lies, as he's been there to this day. In the current time of 40k, he's still there. He looks like a corpse. There's the famous picture of the corpse Emperor where he's like a big skeleton.
Yep, you know? Yep, I've seen that one.
Yep, that's a pretty common one. As for what happened with the rest of everything, the death of Sanguinius sent out, with Sanguinius being a really powerful psyker, if I'm not mistaken, sent out a catastrophic mental wave to the rest of the Blood Angels. Like, the rest of the Blood Angels felt that death, like, super hard. And then that is, I'm not sure if this is where it first developed, or if maybe this is where it kicked it into high gear, something called the Black Rage, which is the genetic fault of the Blood Angels, where the longer they serve as Blood Angels, they have an unquenchable taste for human blood, and they become just maniacal killing machines.
Oh, that's how they become vampires.
Yeah, and there's also units called like Death Company, and those are people who try to go into battle with reckless abandon, hoping to die, because if they live, they're going to be executed anyway, because they become dangerous.
Okay.
But then, like, the battle outside of Terra, all the Blood Angels basically instantly got turned into this Black Rage, horrifying, like, monstrosities, and they went to town. Fucking all of the Horus's dudes felt the Primarch die. They started, like, the Space Marines started fleeing and started retreating and then started running.
Oh.
Like blood, you know that fucking image of goddamn that meme of Spider-Man where he's like overacting. He's like, "Shocker, get back here! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth." It was basically that. They were going so mad with power and with like bloodlust, and the Black Legion of Sons of Horus, all the traitors just started like running. And
I mean, the Blood Angels were already really, really strong, and then you send them into a bloodthirsty rampage. I can see why you might be a little scared and you might want to run. You might want to get the fuck out of there.
It wouldn't hurt, not at all.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. It wouldn't hurt to just get the fuck out of there. You stay and it might hurt real bad.
Oh yeah, and it did. And that really at that point is where the Horus Heresy mostly ended. I mean, the rest of the guys came, the Ultramarines, the Dark Angels, etc. They finally arrived. They cleaned up any remaining mess that were around there. Obviously, many people did leave, like the Death Guard escaped and lived. Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children escaped and lived. Most traitor Primarchs are still alive, actually.
Oh.
Most of them still are alive. If I'm not mistaken, Magnus is alive. Horus is very dead. Angron, Mortarion, Fulgrim, Lorgar, Perturabo, Alfarius Omegon, which is actually an interesting one. They're like a twin Primarch. We'll talk about the Alpha Legion one day. They're pretty cool.
Okay.
But the only ones that I think were actually killed on the Heresy side was Horus, good old Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz died later by an assassination, but that's like neither here nor there. I think that's really it. Yeah.
So what are they all doing now? Like, was Horus the only thing that was like uniting them, or are they still considered like allies? Are they ever gonna like try and storm Terra again, or like what's their goal now?
Well, that would be for a different episode. We're already pretty damn into this one. That being said, I think we have to talk more about that on like the Black Crusades and more about the Black Legion. Long story short, there's this dude named Abaddon. He's taken over Horus's place, but that's a whole different thing, and that's
gotcha.
We'll talk about that another day. If I'm not mistaken, at the current moment, like lots of the Primarchs aren't like around anymore. Like Sanguinius obviously dead, so is Ferrus Mass, but like we don't know where Leman Russ is, we don't know where Rogel Dorn is, we don't know where Jagatai Khan is, we don't know where Vulcan is. They're all like gone. But in the current timeline, they've all kind of gone missing. But that is probably for their respective legions. We'll talk about that.
Okay, cool.
But that being said, I think that's really the Horus Heresy. I think next episode we're going to be talking about the Age of Apostasy. I hope, because I'm so fucking hyped for that. I am so hyped. It's my girls.
It's your girls.
We get to talk about the Sisters of Battle. We get to talk about Goj Vandire, also known as the evilest name of all time.
I was gonna say, Warhammer has some hella evil names. Warhammer's great at naming stuff.
Shy wants orcs after Apostasy, and I'm okay with that.
I think orcs is gonna be a fun episode. Like I've heard little bits and pieces about orcs and how wonky they are. They're real fun guys. I'm down for an orc episode for sure.
Oh hell yeah! I want to do Apostasy because it kind of ties into why the Imperium is a bunch of religious fanatics. Because ironically, the Imperium right now is basically what Lorgar always wanted. Like they worship the Emperor as a god. They have churches built to him. If you don't worship him, you're a heretic and you die. Like it's literally what Lorgar wanted. Lorgar had the last laugh.
Yeah. If only Lorgar was born a little later,
he's still alive.
Worshipped. Oh, that's true. He is still alive, isn't he? That's true.
Yeah, he's chilling.
Yeah. I guess he wouldn't. He obviously wouldn't come back for that because he's like, well, yeah, I did want that, but fuck the Emperor.
Well, and they also hate his guts and they'll kill him at first sight.
Yeah, there's that too, I suppose. Yeah, fair enough.
But that is the Horus Heresy. This is our longest episode. I'm sorry it was so long. And oh my god, did I cut? There was so much shit that I cut out of this one. Man, oh my goodness.
We made it though. We
did.
We did the Horus Heresy. We got it all, and it only took 3 episodes. You know, that's good shit. Instead of 11 books, we did it in 3 episodes. Just a nice little, Cliff Notes version.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And with that, I think it is time to wrap this episode up. To all of you on patreon.com/Adeptus Ridiculous, you people are easily, like, I'm not even saying this as like a sappy thing, like actually are the people that make this stuff work. You are still without a doubt the people that truly help us continue to do this on now a weekly basis. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, 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 whoop. And with that, for all of you who are watching us or listening to us either on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, etc., to those of you patrons in the Discord server that we get to interact with and make memes with and joke around, you're all truly wonderful. It was a pleasure having you all listening to us for this many episodes, and I am super excited for the next one. DK, where can they find you?
Oh, you find me on everything. DK Diamantes, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Instagram, real DK Diamantes, because I can't afford to pay people to give up names, man.
Nope, it's been people are stubborn and stupid.
Yeah.
You can find Shy at Quiet Shy everywhere. I'm pretty sure, lots of places, basically.
Yeah, quite shallow some places, but yeah, it's
quite
fine.
Shallow some places. Yeah. And then I'm Bricky everywhere. I stream a lot. So does DK. We stream a lot. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, we stream a little bit. Twitch, yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Twitch.tv/Bricky. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. It was a pleasure. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Best end to an episode ever.